Here's a couple of shots of the van before we got started with repairing the paintwork. I've given the whole floor a coat of red oxide primer and then began battening out for the insulation slash subfloor. Before I did that, I wanted to get the heavy lifting out the way so I didn't damage the new floor, and remove the bulkhead to open up the space and give us access to the cab as well. So it's pretty simple, just remove the bolts, drill out 2 rivets and lift it out the van. Hi everyone, so as you can see I've already made a bit of a start on this project, as I haven't had time to set up and film everything as I've been going. I've just needed to get cracked on. As you might have seen, my previous van, the engine's had some troubles with the dropped conrod bolt, and I do intend to get it fixed up, but I'd like to get something a little more reliable set up for the coming few years, as I've had the previous van for 4 or 5 years now. So as you can see, got this van all cleaned up so far on the floor and painted with red oxide primer, and then I've applied some Dodo mat sound deadening mats to the wheel arches and to the lower quarter panels there, and a couple in the top. I'm waiting on some more arriving so I can continue along the top panels there and start on this lower section on the driver's side. But for today I'm just going to be getting the flooring sorted, or getting the battens glued down, and then once the battens are down I can get some Kingspan insulation cut to fill the gaps between the battens and get that all fixed down and sealed off. And then we've got a nice flat base to start from. As you can see, having to use a couple of window spaces there just to make up the difference in the floor height where the lat is going to land to start that edge off. And there's a few other spots throughout the floor where I'm probably going to have to use those spaces just so the lat's running nice and level through and not got any gaps beneath it. As you can see there, I've already got the bulkhead removed as well. I'll put a little video in of that. So it's really opened up the space, giving us a good view of what's there and what sort of things could have been hiding that need dealt with. So to bond this floor in place, well, the battens itself, I'm going to be using some Sikaflex 221, and I've got me lats battens all cut to size and ready to go down to get a good section of this flooring started. Let's get at it. So we are back. It's now the next morning. The sealant has had a chance to set overnight. I had a couple of pallets laid out over the battens and a plasterboard prop between the floor and the sealant, just to kind of compress the battens down nice and evenly, and then we can maybe go down and get some plywood. So as you can see, I've just been busy getting the insulation panels cut to fill all the gaps between the battens. And this is 25mm Kingspan with 25mm pressure treated lats. I decided against putting any more noggins in between the rear section here, as this is going to be a garage area and going to have a lot less traffic. So I think that'll still be substantial support for the plywood. I just need to now go around all the battens with the foil tape there and seal up this whole area and complete the vapor barrier throughout the whole floor. I have taken some measurements on the lats to where the original tie down point threads are. So once I've got all this foil tape on, I'll then drill a hole through so I've got access to those bolt holes if I need them in any point of the build. So before I get this flooring fixed down in place, I've been busy with the foil tape there, and I've gone round the entire floor, made sure all the battens are covered, all the edges are taped right tight up to the corners and up the wall. So this floor is now completely vapor proof and sealed off the best I can before the panels go down. So I've just done a quick test fit of those two flooring panels there, and I'm pleased to say that my marks were correct and the rebate has worked quite nicely. So I'll be able to get some Gorilla Glue expanding wood glue between that joint and a few small screws all the way up, and then these two pieces of ply will become one, as where the 4 foot wide panel lands is just on the opposite side of where the floor battens are. So rather than putting a secondary batten into the floor, I decided to just go for a rebate on the ply here, and that should be substantial enough just to stop any sag in the board throughout the floor. So I've just got the first half of the ply floor in there, it's all screwed down to the battens, and as I mentioned earlier, I've got my marks on the top of the ply all the way down the edge there, showing us where the original tie down points are in the floor. So if I ever need to use any of those for securing anything in place, I can get access to them without fishing around and hoping that I find the right spot. So I'm ready to put a nice amount of glue up this rebate here, and then I can lay the other half of the flooring in place, and I'll put some very short screws that are about 15mm between the two sections of ply to pull the two halves together and just give it a mechanical bond as well as the glue, and then obviously screw to the battens throughout the whole board as well, and then that's going to give it a good solid fixing to this floor and give us a nice solid base to start working from. So there we have it. The two flooring boards for the front section of the van are now all screwed and glued down in place and ready to get another piece for the garage area, and then we can think about putting some lino flooring down. Really pleased with the progress I've made this weekend, but with it being a bank holiday Monday, I won't be able to get any ply until the coming Tuesday, so I'm gonna have to try and get on with some other bits in the van. So we managed to get some plywood and some rubber matting, and I've managed to get that cut out to the shape around the wheel arches and use the plywood to mark out the matting itself. To secure this in place, we've just used some double-sided carpet tape, which will be more than strong enough to hold this matting in place for the garage area. Just put a little trim between the two floor sections. So with the floor pretty much finished, I've moved on to insulating some of the upper panels of the van. As you can see here, I've used sound deadening 10mm closed cell foam with a foil back to line the bed area, and then I've also lined the panels themselves, then used recycled plastic wadding to fill the voids before layering another layer of the 10mm closed cell foam on the top to seal off those areas, ready for plywood to be fixed on top. Using 2 sheets of 6mm ply, I've managed to cut out the side panels for the garage area and the headboards for above the bed area, so I'm really pleased with how that's worked out. Just used the original panels as a template